They thought he was nothing. A broken man drowning in grief and night shifts, too weak to fight back. But the day they took her from him, Cole Mercer stopped pretending. And when a man like that decides to stop hiding, the people who underestimated him don't just lose, they disappear. If you want to see how far a quiet man will go when you push him past his limit, stay with me until the end. Hit that like button and drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels. The rain came down like punishment. Cole Mercer stood under the broken awning of the gas station, staring at the cracked asphalt where water pooled in ugly black mirrors. His shift didn't start for another hour, but he'd left early anyway. The apartment was too quiet. His daughter, Emma, was asleep at his neighbor's place, and the silence in his own home had started to feel like something alive, something that watched him. He pulled his jacket tighter. It wasn't warm enough for November, but it was the only one he had that didn't have paint stains or holes in the elbows. He looked like what he was, a man barely holding on. "You waiting for the bus?" Cole turned. The attendant, a kid maybe 20 years old with acne scars and a name tag that said Brandon, was leaning out the door, smoking a cigarette that looked like it had been bent in half and straightened out again. "No," Cole said. "Just thinking." Brandon nodded like that made sense. "It's a good night for it, rain and all. Philosophical." Cole didn't answer. He wasn't in the mood for small talk. And the kid seemed to get that because he ducked back inside without another word. Cole checked his watch. 52 minutes until he had to be at the warehouse. 52 minutes of standing here, or walking, or sitting in some diner where they'd look at him like he couldn't afford coffee. He hated this. Hated the waiting. Hated the exhaustion that lived in his bones now, the kind that sleep didn't fix. He started walking. The street was empty except for a few cars that hissed past, their headlights cutting through the rain. Cole kept his head down, hands in his pockets, and let his mind go blank. It was easier that way. Thinking led to remembering, and remembering led to places he couldn't afford to go. Not tonight. But then he saw her. At first she was just a shape, a shadow sitting on the bench at the bus stop near the overpass. Cole almost walked past. It wasn't his business. People sat at bus stops all the time, even in weather like this, but something made him look again. She wasn't moving. The rain was coming down harder now, and she was just sitting there, soaked through, her arms wrapped around herself like she was trying to hold her own body together. Her hair was plastered to her face, dark and dripping, and she wasn't looking at anything, just staring straight ahead, blank. Cole stopped. "Hey," he called out. She didn't respond. He stepped closer, out of the small shelter of a storefront awning and into the full weight of the rain. "You okay?" Still nothing. When he got close enough, he could see her face. She was young, mid-20s maybe, pale, shaking. Her lips had a faint blue tint, and her eyes were red, swollen, like she'd been crying for hours. She looked like someone who'd run out of places to go. "Miss?" Her eyes flicked up to him, and for a second he saw something sharp in them, fear maybe, or suspicion. But then it faded, and she just looked tired. "I'm fine," she said. Her voice was hoarse. "You don't look fine." "I said I'm fine." Cole glanced down the street. No bus in sight. No cars slowing down. No one else around. Just the two of them, and the rain, and the long stretch of empty road. "When's the next bus?" he asked. She blinked at him. "I don't know." "You waiting for one?" "I don't know." Cole crouched down so he was at her eye level. Up close, he could see the bruises. Faint, but there. One on her wrist, another just under her jaw. She saw him looking and pulled her sleeves down, tucked her chin. "You running from someone?" he asked quietly. Her jaw tightened. "That's not your business." "You're right. It's not." He straightened up, looked around again. "But you can't stay out here. You'll get hypothermia or worse." "I'll be fine." "You keep saying that." She didn't answer. Cole sighed. This was stupid. He didn't know this woman. He had his own problems, his own life that was barely functional on a good day. Getting involved in someone else's mess was the last thing he needed. But he couldn't just leave her here. "Look," he said, "I live about 10 minutes from here. You can come in, dry off, get warm. I'm not going to hurt you. I'm just—" He trailed off, not sure how to finish that sentence. "I'm just offering." She looked up at him again, and this time there was something different in her expression. Not trust exactly, but maybe exhaustion that looked like it. Why? She asked. Because you look like you need help. And you're just a good person? No, Cole said honestly. But I'm not a bad one. She studied him for a long moment, and he could see her weighing it. The risk, the options, the alternative. Finally, she stood. Her legs were unsteady, and she had to grab the bench to keep from swaying. 10 minutes? She asked. 10 minutes. And then I leave. And then you leave. She nodded, and Cole turned and started walking. He didn't look back to see if she was following. If she wanted to come, she'd come. If not, at least he'd tried. But after a few seconds, he heard footsteps behind him. He mummed. The apartment was worse than he remembered. Cole unlocked the door and stepped inside, flipping on the light. The bulb flickered twice before catching, casting a dull yellow glow over the cramped living room. The couch was buried under a pile of laundry he hadn't folded yet. The coffee table had a stack of bills he hadn't opened. The kitchen sink was full of dishes he hadn't washed. He glanced back at the woman, who was standing in the doorway like she wasn't sure if she should come in. It's not much, he said. It's fine. She stepped inside, dripping water onto the linoleum, and closed the door behind her. For a moment, they just stood there, two soaked strangers in a dim apartment, not saying anything. Bathroom's down the hall, Cole said finally. There's towels in the cabinet. You can take a shower if you want. I'll find you something dry to wear. She nodded but didn't move. What's your name? He asked. She hesitated. Sienna. I'm Cole. Okay. She walked past him toward the bathroom, and Cole went to the bedroom to dig through the closet. Most of his clothes would be too big for her, but he found an old sweatshirt and a pair of sweatpants that might work. He set them outside the bathroom door and knocked once. Left some clothes out here, he called. Thanks, came the muffled reply. Cole went back to the kitchen and started making coffee. He didn't know what else to do. His hands needed something to occupy them, and his brain needed something to focus on that wasn't the fact that he'd just brought a complete stranger into his home. What are you doing? He didn't have an answer. The shower ran for a long time. Cole sat at the kitchen table, staring at the coffee pot, listening to the water and the rain outside and the occasional creak of the old building settling. He thought about Emma, about how she'd laugh if she saw him now, trying to help someone when he could barely help himself. When Sienna finally came out, she looked different, smaller somehow. The sweatshirt hung off her frame, and the sweatpants were rolled up at the ankles. Her hair was still damp, pushed back from her face, and without all the rain and smudged makeup, Cole could see how young she really was. Feel better? He asked. Yeah, thanks. He poured her a cup of coffee and slid it across the table. She wrapped both hands around it, like she was trying to pull all the warmth out of the ceramic. You don't have to tell me anything, Cole said. But if you need help, real help, I can try to point you in the right direction. Sienna stared into the cup. I don't need help. All right. I just need to disappear for a while. Cole didn't push. He'd learned a long time ago that people talked when they were ready, not when you wanted them to. You can stay here tonight, he said. Couch is yours. I'll be gone in an hour anyway. Work. She looked up at him, surprised. You're leaving? Night shift. You trust me here alone? Cole shrugged. Do I have a reason not to? You don't know me. No, but you don't look like someone who's going to rob me blind. He paused. And even if you did, there's not much worth taking. She almost smiled at that. Almost. Why are you doing this? She asked. I don't know, Cole said. And that was the truth. Sienna looked at him for a long time, like she was trying to figure out if he was real or just another version of the men who'd already lied to her. Finally, she nodded. Okay, she said. Just tonight. Just tonight. Cole left for work 20 minutes later, and the whole shift felt strange. Normally, the warehouse was just noise and monotony, forklifts, boxes, shouting, the mechanical repetition of loading and unloading. But tonight, his mind kept drifting back to the apartment, to Sienna, to the look in her eyes when she'd asked him why he was helping. He didn't have a good answer then, and he didn't have one now. When his shift ended at 6 a.m, he was exhausted. His back ached, his hands were sore, and all he wanted was to collapse into bed. But as he walked back through the early gray light, he found himself wondering if she'd still be there. She was. Sienna was asleep on the couch, curled up under the blanket he'd left out for her. Her face was turned toward the window, and in the soft morning light, she looked peaceful. Almost like a different person. Cole stood there for a moment, just watching her. He didn't know why. Maybe because it had been a long time since anyone had been in this apartment other than him and Emma. Maybe because the silence didn't feel as heavy with someone else in it. He walked quietly to the kitchen, started another pot of coffee, and sat down at the table to wait. Sienna woke up an hour later. She sat up slowly, blinking at the room like she'd forgotten where she was. When she saw Cole sitting at the table, she tensed. "Morning," he said. "Morning. Coffee?" "Yeah, thanks." He poured her a cup and brought it over. She took it without looking at him, her hand still shaking a little. "You sleep okay?" he asked. "Better than I have in a while." Cole nodded. He didn't ask why. He just sat down across from her and drank his own coffee, and for a while neither of them said anything. Finally, Sienna spoke. "I should go." "Where?" "I don't know. Somewhere." "You got money?" She hesitated. "A little." "Enough to get somewhere safe?" "I don't know." Cole leaned back in his chair studying her. She was lying, or at least not telling the whole truth. But that was fine. Everyone had secrets. "You can stay another day if you need to," he said. "I'm not kicking you out. I don't want to be a burden." "You're not. You don't even know me." "No. But I know what it's like to have nowhere to go." Sienna looked at him, and for the first time there was something almost soft in her expression. "Why are you being nice to me?" Cole thought about that, about all the reasons he could give, about the truth he didn't want to say out loud. "Because nobody was nice to me when I needed it," he said finally. Sienna didn't say anything. She just looked down at her coffee, and Cole saw her jaw tighten, saw her blink a little too fast. "Okay," she said quietly. "One more day. One more day." Emma came home that afternoon. Mrs. Brennan from next door brought her over, and the second Emma saw Cole, she ran straight at him, arms wide, like she hadn't seen him in weeks instead of one night. "Daddy!" Cole scooped her up, held her tight, and for a moment everything else faded. The exhaustion, the confusion, the woman on his couch, it all disappeared. And there was just this. His daughter. The only thing that mattered. "Hey, kiddo," he said. "Did you have fun?" "Yeah, Mrs. Brennan's let me watch cartoons and we had pancakes for dinner." Cole set her down and glanced at Mrs. Brennan, who was standing in the doorway with a knowing smile. "Thanks for watching her," he said. "Any time, Cole, you know that." "I owe you." "You don't owe me anything." She started to leave, then paused. "You doing okay?" "Yeah, I'm fine." She didn't look convinced, but she didn't push. "All right, you call me if you need anything." "I will." She left, and Emma immediately started chattering about her night, about the cartoons, about how Mrs. Brennan's cat had knocked over a plant and made a big mess. Cole listened, nodded, smiled when he was supposed to, and then Emma noticed Sienna. "Who's that?" she asked, pointing. Sienna had been sitting very still on the couch, trying to be invisible. But now she looked up, and Cole saw the uncertainty in her face. "That's Sienna," Cole said. "She's staying with us for a little bit." Emma tilted her head, studying Sienna with the kind of blunt curiosity only kids had. "Why?" "Because she needed a place to stay." "Oh, okay." Emma walked over to the couch and stuck out her hand. "I'm Emma. I'm 6. Sienna blinked, then took the small hand and shook it carefully. "Hi, Emma. I'm Sienna. Do you like cartoons?" I don't know. I haven't watched any in a while." "You should watch cartoons. They're really good." Sienna smiled, a small, fragile thing, but real. "Maybe I will." Emma climbed onto the couch next to her, and just like that, the tension broke. Cole watched them, this strange little scene, and felt something shift in his chest. He didn't know what he was doing. He didn't know if this was smart or reckless or just plain stupid, but for the first time in a long time, the apartment didn't feel empty. The next few days passed in a strange, quiet rhythm. Sienna stayed. She didn't talk much, and Cole didn't ask. She helped around the apartment, cleaned up the kitchen, folded the laundry, played with Emma when Cole was too tired to do anything but collapse on the couch. She moved through the space like a ghost, careful not to take up too much room, like she was afraid of being noticed. But Emma noticed. Emma loved her. "Sienna taught me how to braid," she announced one evening, running up to Cole with her hair in two crooked plaits. "Did she?" "Yeah, and she said tomorrow we can make cookies." Cole glanced at Sienna, who was standing in the kitchen doorway looking embarrassed. "If that's okay," she said quickly. "I didn't mean to—" "It's fine," Cole said. "She loves cookies." "I really love cookies," Emma added. Sienna smiled, and this time it reached her eyes. But not everything was easy. One night, Cole came home from his shift to find Sienna sitting on the fire escape, staring out at the city. He grabbed a beer from the fridge, climbed out, and sat down next to her. "Can't sleep?" he asked. "Not really." "Yeah, me neither." They sat in silence for a while, the city humming below them, distant sirens, car horns, the occasional shout. Cole took a sip of his beer and stared at the skyline, at the buildings lit up like they had secrets. "Can I ask you something?" Sienna said. "Sure." "Why do you work nights?" Cole shrugged. "Pays a little more. And Emma's asleep anyway, so I'm not missing anything." "That's not true." He looked at her. "What do you mean?" "You're missing everything," Sienna said quietly. "You're just not awake to see it." Cole didn't have an answer for that. "What about you?" he asked. "What are you running from?" Sienna stiffened. "I didn't say I was running. You didn't have to." She looked away, her fingers gripping the edge of the metal railing. For a long time, she didn't say anything. "My family," she said finally. "They think they own me." "Do they?" "They used to." Her voice was flat, hard. "Not anymore." Cole waited, giving her space to say more if she wanted. She didn't. "You ever think about going back?" he asked. "No." "What if they come looking for you?" Sienna's jaw tightened. "Let them." There was something in her voice, something cold and certain, that made Cole think she wasn't as helpless as she looked. "Well," he said, "for what it's worth, you're safe here." She turned to look at him, and there was something vulnerable in her eyes, something that made his chest tighten. "Why do you keep saying that?" she asked. "Because it's true." "You don't know that." "Yeah," Cole said. "I do." Tut. The breaking point came a week later. Cole's mother-in-law, Diane, showed up unannounced. She didn't knock. She had a key, an old one Cole had never bothered to take back, and she let herself in like she owned the place. Cole was in the kitchen when he heard the door open, and by the time he turned around, she was already standing there, arms crossed, lips pressed into a thin line. "Diane," he said evenly. "Cole." Emma looked up from where she was coloring at the table. "Grandma!" Diane's expression softened for a fraction of a second, but when she looked back at Cole, it hardened again. "We need to talk," she said. "About?" "About this." She gestured vaguely around the apartment, at the mess, at the life Cole was barely holding together. "About Emma." Cole's stomach dropped. "What about Emma?" "She shouldn't be living like this." "Like what?" "Like this, Cole. Look at this place. Look at you. You're exhausted, you're broke, and you're raising my granddaughter in squalor. It's not squalor. It's close enough." Cole's hands curled into fists, but he kept his voice calm. "Emma's fine. She's happy. She's safe. She deserves better. And what, you think you can give her that?" Diane's eyes flashed. "I think I can give her stability, structure, a home that doesn't smell like failure." The words hit like a slap. Cole opened his mouth to respond, but before he could, Sienna stepped out of the hallway. "Who the hell are you?" Diane asked, her tone sharp. Sienna looked at Cole, then at Diane, and something shifted in her posture, something protective. "I'm a friend," Sienna said coolly. "A friend." Diane's voice dripped with disdain. "And you're living here?" "Temporarily." "Of course you are." Diane turned back to Cole. "This is exactly what I'm talking about. You're bringing strangers into my granddaughter's home." "This is my home," Cole said, his voice low and dangerous. "Not yours. Mine. And Emma is my daughter. Not yours. Mine." Diane's face flushed. "Your wife would be ashamed of you." The room went silent. Cole stared at her, and for a moment he didn't say anything. He just stood there, feeling the weight of those words settle over him like a shroud. "Get out," he said quietly. "Excuse me?" "I said get out." Diane's mouth opened, closed. "You can't." "Yes, I can. This is my home. Get out." She looked at him, at Sienna, at Emma, who was watching with wide, confused eyes. Then she turned and walked to the door, her heels clicking on the floor. "This isn't over," she said. "Yeah," Cole said, "it is." She left, and the door slammed behind her. Cole stood there, shaking, his heart pounding in his chest. Sienna walked over and put a hand on his arm. "You okay?" she asked. "No," Cole said, "but I will be." That night, after Emma was asleep, Sienna found Cole sitting on the couch, staring at nothing. "You want to talk about it?" she asked. "Not really." "Okay." She sat down next to him, and they stayed there in the quiet, side by side, not saying anything. After a while, Cole spoke. "I used to be someone," he said. "Before all this. Before Emma. Before my wife died. Before everything. I was someone people respected, someone who got things done." Sienna looked at him. "What happened?" "I walked away." His voice was flat. "I had to. For Emma. Because being that person meant I couldn't be her father." "And now?" Cole turned to look at her, and there was something in his eyes that hadn't been there before, something hard and cold and awake. "Now," he said, "I'm starting to think I made a mistake." Sienna didn't say anything. She just reached over and took his hand, and Cole held on like it was the only thing keeping him from falling apart. The next morning came too fast. Cole woke up on the couch with a crick in his neck and the taste of stale coffee in his mouth. Sienna was already up, moving quietly through the kitchen, and Emma was still asleep in her room. The apartment smelled like burnt toast and something else, something that reminded him of before, when his wife was still alive and mornings didn't feel like survival. He sat up, rubbed his face, and watched Sienna work. She was trying to make breakfast, fumbling with the stove, clearly not used to cooking. The pan smoked. She jumped back, waved a dish towel at it, cursed under her breath. "You need help?" Cole asked. She turned, startled. "I didn't know you were awake." "Just woke up. I was trying to make eggs. I think I killed them." Cole walked over and looked at the pan. The eggs were black around the edges, stuck to the bottom like glue. He turned off the burner. "Yeah," he said. "They're dead." Sienna looked embarrassed. "I'm not good at this." "At what?" "Any of it. Cooking, cleaning, being normal." Cole dumped the eggs in the trash and rinsed the pan. "Nobody's asking you to be normal." "Your mother-in-law is." He froze, his hand still in the sink. "Diane doesn't get a vote." "She seems to think she does." Cole didn't answer. He dried his hands on a towel and leaned against the counter, staring at nothing. "She's going to come back," Sienna said quietly. "I know. And when she does, she's going to try to take Emma." Cole's jaw tightened. "She can try." "Cole, she's not taking my daughter." Sienna looked at him, and he could see the worry in her eyes. "What if she has a case? What if she gets a lawyer, and then I'll get a lawyer too?" "With what money?" Cole didn't have an answer for that. Sienna walked over and sat down at the table, her hands folded in front of her. "I'm sorry," she said. "I didn't mean to make things worse." "You didn't." "She wouldn't have shown up if I wasn't here." "She would have shown up eventually." Cole sat down across from her. "Diane's been waiting for me to fail since the day her daughter died. She just finally found an excuse." "What are you going to do?" "I don't know." They sat in silence for a while, the weight of everything pressing down on them. Cole thought about Diane, about the look on her face when she'd called him a failure, about how close she was to being right. "I need to find better work," he said finally. "Doing what?" "I don't know, something that pays more than the warehouse." "You have a degree?" "No." "Experience?" Cole hesitated. "Yeah, but not the kind I can put on a resume." Sienna frowned. "What does that mean?" "It means I used to do things I'm not proud of." "What kind of things?" Cole looked at her, and for a moment he considered telling her the truth, about who he used to be, about the empire he'd walked away from, About the fact that the broke, exhausted single dad she was sitting across from was once one of the most dangerous men in the city. But he didn't. Doesn't matter, he said. That's over. Sienna didn't push. She just nodded, like she understood what it meant to bury your past and hope it stayed buried. Well, she said, for what it's worth, I think you're doing a good job. With what? With Emma. With everything. Cole almost laughed. I'm barely keeping my head above water. But you're keeping it above. That's more than a lot of people can say. He looked at her, really looked at her, and saw something in her face that hadn't been there before. Respect, maybe. Or just recognition. Like she knew what it was like to fight just to stay standing. Thanks, he said. Don't mention it. Emma wandered in a few minutes later, rubbing her eyes and dragging her stuffed rabbit behind her. She climbed into Cole's lap without a word, and he wrapped his arms around her, held her close. Morning, kiddo, he said. Morning, Daddy. You hungry? Yeah. How about cereal? Okay. Cole set her down, poured her a bowl, and watched her eat. She was happy, safe. That was all that mattered. But in the back of his mind, Diane's voice echoed. Your wife would be ashamed of you. He pushed it down, buried it, and tried to focus on the moment. It didn't work. Later that day, Cole took Emma to the park. It was one of the few things he could afford, free, outside, and far enough from the apartment that he didn't have to think about bills or Diane, or the slow collapse of everything he'd built. Emma ran ahead, chasing pigeons and laughing, and Cole sat on a bench and watched her. Sienna had stayed behind. She'd said she needed some time alone, and Cole hadn't argued. He understood. Sometimes you needed to sit with yourself, even if it hurt. Cole Mercer. The voice came from behind him, low and familiar. Cole's entire body went rigid. He turned slowly. The man standing there was tall, well-dressed, with silver hair and a smile that didn't reach his eyes. His name was Marcus Hale, and Cole hadn't seen him in 3 years, not since the funeral. Marcus, Cole said flatly, it's been a while. Not long enough, Marcus laughed, like that was funny. Still charming, I see. Cole didn't respond. He turned back to watch Emma, but every muscle in his body was tense, ready. What do you want? He asked. Just checking in, seeing how you're doing. I'm fine. You don't look fine. Cole's hands curled into fists. I said I'm fine. Marcus walked around the bench and sat down next to him, uninvited. He crossed one leg over the other, relaxed, like they were old friends catching up. I heard you're working at a warehouse now, Marcus said. Night shifts, minimum wage. You keeping tabs on me. I keep tabs on everyone. Cole turned to look at him, and there was something cold in his eyes. I'm out, Marcus. I told you that 3 years ago. I know, and I respected it. But things change. Not for me. Come on, Cole. Look at yourself. You're barely surviving. Your daughter's growing up in a shithole apartment, and you're 1 bad month away from losing everything. I'll manage. Will you? Marcus leaned forward, his voice dropping. Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you're drowning, and I'm offering you a lifeline. Cole stood up, his jaw tight. I don't want your lifeline. You sure about that? Yeah, I'm sure. Marcus studied him for a long moment, then nodded. All right. But when you change your mind, and you will, you know where to find me. He stood, straightened his jacket, and walked away without another word. Cole watched him go, his heart pounding in his chest. He hadn't thought about that life in years, hadn't let himself. But now, standing here in the park with Emma laughing in the distance and Marcus's words echoing in his head, he felt something stir, something he'd thought was dead. Good. That night, Cole couldn't sleep. He lay on the couch, staring at the ceiling, replaying the conversation with Marcus over and over. He hated that it had gotten to him, hated that part of him, small, quiet, buried deep, was considering it. Because Marcus was right. Cole was drowning. And no matter how hard he worked, no matter how much he sacrificed, it wasn't enough. It was never enough. You okay? Cole turned. Sienna was standing in the hallway, wrapped in a blanket, her hair messy from sleep. Yeah, he lied. You don't look okay. Just thinking. She walked over and sat down on the edge of the couch. About what? Nothing important. Sienna gave him a look that said she didn't believe him, but she didn't push. She just sat there, quiet, waiting. Someone from my past showed up today, Cole said finally. Offered me a job. What kind of job? The kind I walked away from. And? And I told him no. Sienna nodded. But you're thinking about it. No. Cole? I'm not thinking about it, he said more forcefully than he meant to. I'm done with that life. I have Emma. That's all that matters. Okay. They sat in silence for a while, and Cole could feel the weight of everything pressing down on him. Diane, Marcus, the bills, the exhaustion, the slow erosion of the man he used to be. Can I ask you something? Sienna said. Sure. Who were you? Before all this? Cole hesitated. Someone I'm not proud of, but someone powerful. Yeah. And you gave it up. I had to. Why? Cole looked at her, and for the first time he let himself say it out loud. Because my wife died, he said quietly. And when she did, I realized that all the money, all the power, all the control, it didn't matter. None of it could save her. And if it couldn't save her, then what was the point? Sienna didn't say anything. She just reached over and took his hand, and they sat there together in the dark. The next few days were tense. Diane called twice, left voicemails Cole didn't listen to. Sienna started sleeping poorly, waking up in the middle of the night with nightmares she wouldn't talk about. Emma asked why Grandma was mad, and Cole didn't know how to explain it in a way that made sense. And then, one afternoon, everything changed. Cole came home from a job interview, another rejection, another door slammed in his face, and found the apartment empty. Sienna? He called. No answer. Emma? Nothing. His heart started to race. He checked the bedroom, the bathroom, the kitchen. No one. And then he saw the note on the table. Took Emma to the library. Back soon. Cole exhaled, his hands shaking. He sat down trying to calm himself, but the fear didn't go away. It just shifted, settled into a different shape. He was losing control. He could feel it slipping through his fingers, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. An hour later, Sienna and Emma came back. Daddy! Emma ran to him, holding up a stack of picture books. Look what we got! Cole forced a smile. That's great, kiddo. Sienna set down her bag and looked at him. You okay? Yeah, just leave a note next time, all right? I did. A longer one. She frowned. Cole, we were gone for an hour. I know, just please. Sienna studied him, and he could see the concern in her eyes. But she didn't argue. She just nodded. Okay, she said. I will. That night, after Emma was asleep, Sienna found Cole sitting on the fire escape again. You want company? She asked. Sure. She climbed out and sat next to him, and for a while they just looked at the city. I'm sorry I scared you today, she said. You didn't. Yes, I did, Cole sighed. I'm on edge. With Diane, with everything. I feel like I'm waiting for something to go wrong. And you think it will? I know it will. Sienna turned to look at him. Why? Because that's how it always goes. You think things are okay, and then they're not. You think you're safe, and then you lose everything. That's not always true. It's been true for me. Sienna didn't argue. She just reached over and put her hand on his, and they sat there in the quiet. I'm not going anywhere, she said finally. Cole looked at her. What? I know you think I'm going to leave, that I'm just passing through, but I'm not. Sienna, I mean it. I'm staying for as long as you'll have me. Cole didn't know what to say. He wanted to believe her. He wanted to trust that someone, anyone, would stay. But trust was hard. Why? He asked. Because you helped me when you didn't have to, and because Emma needs someone who isn't falling apart. I'm not falling apart. Sienna gave him a look. Cole, you're holding on by a thread. He wanted to argue, but he couldn't, because she was right. Okay, he said quietly. Stay. Okay. The breaking point came a week later. Cole was at work when his phone rang. It was Mrs. Brennan, and her voice was shaking. Cole, you need to come home. What happened? It's Diane. She's here. She's trying to take Emma. Cole's blood went cold. What? She showed up with some kind of paperwork. She says she has custody. She's trying to take her right now. Don't let her. I'm trying, but I'm on my way. Cole hung up, told his supervisor he had an emergency, and ran. By the time he got to the apartment, it was chaos. Diane was standing in the living room holding Emma's hand while Emma cried. Mrs. Brennan was blocking the door, her face red with anger. Sienna was there too, standing between Diane and the hallway, her arms crossed. Let her go, Cole said, his voice low and dangerous. Diane turned to look at him, and there was something cold in her eyes. No, she's my daughter. Not anymore. Cole took a step forward, and Sienna put a hand on his chest, stopping him. Don't, she said quietly. Not in front of Emma. Cole looked at his daughter, who was sobbing, her face buried in Diane's side, and something inside him broke. What did you do? He asked Diane. She held up a stack of papers. I filed for emergency custody, and the judge agreed. On what grounds? Neglect, instability, endangerment. That's bullshit. Is it? You're broke, Cole. You work nights. You brought a stranger into your home. You can't even afford to feed her properly. That's not true. Prove it. Cole's hands were shaking. He wanted to scream, to fight, to tear the world apart, but he couldn't, not with Emma there. You can't do this, he said, his voice breaking. I already did. Diane turned and started walking toward the door, pulling Emma with her. No, Cole said, stepping forward. You're not taking her. Move, Cole. No. Diane's eyes narrowed. If you don't move, I'll call the police, and then you'll lose her forever. Cole stood there, frozen, his mind racing. He could fight. He could stop her. But if he did, if he crossed that line, it would only prove her right. Sienna stepped forward. Wait. Diane turned. Who the hell are you to tell me to wait? Someone who actually cares about what's best for Emma. And you think staying here is what's best? I think ripping her away from her father isn't. Diane's face flushed. You don't know what you're talking about. Maybe not. But I know what it's like to be torn away from the people you love. And I know it destroys you. Diane stared at her, and for a moment something shifted in her expression. But then it hardened again. This isn't your decision, she said. You're right, it's Emma's. Diane hesitated. What? Sienna crouched down in front of Emma, who was still crying. Emma, sweetheart, do you want to go with your grandma? Emma looked at her, then at Cole, then back at Diane. Her face was streaked with tears. I want to stay with Daddy, she whispered. Diane's face crumpled. Emma, I want to stay with Daddy. For a long moment, no one moved. Then Diane let go of Emma's hand. Fine, she said, her voice tight. But this isn't over. She turned and walked out, slamming the door behind her. The apartment went silent. Emma ran to Cole, and he picked her up, held her close, felt her little body shaking against his. It's okay, he whispered. You're okay. Sienna stood there watching them, and when Cole looked at her, he saw tears in her eyes. Thank you, he said. She nodded, wiping her face. Don't mention it, Chum. That night, after Emma was asleep, Cole sat at the kitchen table, staring at the custody papers Diane had left behind. Sienna sat down across from him. What are you going to do? I don't know. You need a lawyer. I can't afford a lawyer. Then you need to find a way. Cole looked at her, and something in his expression shifted. There is a way. Sienna frowned. What do you mean? Cole stood up, walked to the bedroom, and came back with a phone. An old one, a burner he hadn't touched in years. What are you doing? Sienna asked. Cole didn't answer. He turned on the phone, scrolled through the contacts, and pressed call. It rang twice before someone picked up. Marcus, Cole said. It's me. There was a pause. I knew you'd call. I need your help. And what are you willing to give me in return? Cole looked at Sienna, at the fear in her eyes, and made a choice. Whatever it takes, he said. He hung up, and the room went silent. Sienna stared at him. Cole, I know. You just made a deal with the devil. I know. And you're okay with that? Cole looked at her and there was something hard in his eyes, something cold. "No," he said, "but I'm out of options." Sienna didn't say anything. She just reached across the table and took his hand, and Cole held on, even though he knew he'd just crossed a line he could never uncross. Marcus's office hadn't changed. Cole stood in the doorway, taking it in. The floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, the mahogany desk that probably cost more than Cole made in a year, the leather chairs that smelled like money and power. It was a different world, one he'd walked away from and sworn he'd never return to. But here he was. "Come in, Cole," Marcus said, not looking up from the file he was reading. "Don't just stand there like a stranger." Cole stepped inside, closed the door behind him. The click echoed in the silence. Marcus set down the file and leaned back in his chair, studying Cole with the same calculating look he'd always had. "You look like hell." "Thanks. I'm serious. When was the last time you slept?" "I don't know. A week ago. Maybe 2. Marcus shook his head. "Sit down before you fall down." Cole sat, and the chair was as comfortable as he remembered. Too comfortable. The kind of comfort that made you forget what you were giving up to have it. "So," Marcus said, "you called. You asked for help. Now tell me what you need." Cole hesitated, his hands gripping the armrests. "I need a lawyer, a good one. Someone who can fight my mother-in-law's custody claim and win. That's expensive. I know. And you can't afford it." "No." Marcus nodded like he'd expected that. "What else?" "What do you mean?" "I mean, you didn't call me just for a lawyer. You could have found a cheaper one, taken out a loan, figured something out. But you called me. So what else do you need?" Cole looked at him, and the weight of everything pressed down on his chest. "I need to know she's safe." "Who?" "Sienna." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "The woman living with you?" "Yeah." "Who is she?" "Someone who needed help." "That's not an answer." Cole's jaw tightened. "It's the only one you're getting." Marcus studied him for a long moment, then smiled, a thin, knowing smile that made Cole's stomach turn. "You care about her." "That's not your business." "It is if you want my help." Cole didn't say anything. He just stared at Marcus, waiting. "All right," Marcus said finally. "I'll get you the lawyer. I'll make sure your mother-in-law's case falls apart, and I'll look into this Sienna of yours, see who's after her and why. I didn't ask you to—" "I know, but you're going to need it anyway." Marcus leaned forward, his expression serious. "Because if she's running from someone dangerous and you're caught in the middle, this is going to get messy." "I can handle messy." "Can you?" "Because the Cole Mercer I knew could, but the Cole Mercer sitting in front of me looks like he can barely handle getting out of bed." Cole's hands curled into fists. "I'm fine. You're not. But you will be." Marcus stood, walked to the window, looked out at the city. "I'm going to help you, Cole. But there's a price." "I know." "Do you? Because once you step back into this world, there's no walking away a second time. You understand that?" Cole swallowed hard. "Yeah, I understand." "Good." Marcus turned to face him. "Then we have a deal." Bottom. Cole left the office an hour later with a business card, a lawyer's name, and a knot in his stomach that wouldn't go away. He knew what he'd just done. He knew what it meant. But he didn't have a choice. Not anymore. When he got home, Sienna was waiting for him. She was sitting on the couch, her arms wrapped around herself, and the second she saw him, she stood up. "Well?" she asked. "He's going to help." "What's it going to cost?" Cole didn't answer right away. He walked to the kitchen, poured himself a glass of water, drank it down. "I don't know yet." "Cole, I said I don't know." Sienna walked over, stood in front of him, forced him to look at her. "What did you promise him?" "Nothing I can't handle." "That's not an answer." Cole set down the glass, ran a hand through his hair. "I promised him I'd come back." "Come back to what?" "To the work I used to do." Sienna's face went pale. "What kind of work?" Cole looked at her, and for the first time he let her see the truth. Security, strategy, problem solving for people who couldn't solve their own problems. "You mean illegal?" "Not always, but sometimes." Sienna stepped back, her arms crossed. "And now you're going back to that." "I don't have a choice." "There's always a choice." "Not when your daughter's about to be taken away." Sienna opened her mouth, closed it. She looked like she wanted to argue, but she couldn't because she knew he was right. "What about Emma?" she asked quietly. "What about her? If you go back to that life, what happens to her?" Cole's chest tightened. "I'll keep her safe." "How? By becoming the kind of man she shouldn't look up to?" "I'm already that man," Cole said, his voice hard. "I've always been that man. I just tried to pretend I wasn't." Sienna stared at him, and he could see the conflict in her eyes, the part of her that understood and the part that hated it. "I don't want you to do this," she said. "I know. But you're going to anyway." "Yeah." She shook her head, looked away. "You're going to regret this." "Maybe, but at least Emma will still be here to see it." Sienna didn't say anything. She just walked past him down the hall and closed the door to her room. Cole stood there alone, staring at the empty space where she'd been, and wondered if he'd just lost the only person who'd believed in him. The lawyer Marcus sent was named Rebecca Cho, and she was exactly the kind of person Cole expected: sharp, expensive, and completely unbothered by the mess she was stepping into. She showed up at the apartment 2 days later with a briefcase and a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Mr. Mercer," she said, shaking his hand, "I've reviewed your case. We have work to do." They sat at the kitchen table and Rebecca spread out the documents Diane had filed, pages and pages of accusations, claims, and carefully worded lies. "This is bad," Rebecca said bluntly. "Your mother-in-law has painted you as neglectful, unstable, and financially incapable. She's also highlighted the presence of Ms. Vale in your home as a potential risk to your daughter." Cole's jaw tightened. "Sienna's not a risk. I believe you, but the judge won't care what we believe. They'll care about what we can prove." "So what do we do?" Rebecca pulled out a notepad and started writing. "We build a counter case. We show that you're a devoted father, that your home is safe, and that Diane's claims are exaggerated or false. We'll need character witnesses, financial records, evidence of stability." "I don't have financial records that'll help." "Then we'll focus on character. Teachers, neighbors, anyone who can speak to your relationship with Emma." Cole thought about Mrs. Brennan, about the few people who'd seen him with Emma and knew he loved her. "I can get that." "Good. We'll also need to address the live-in girlfriend situation." "She's not my girlfriend," Rebecca raised an eyebrow. "Then what is she?" "A friend. A friend who lives with you and helps raise your daughter." "Yeah. Mr. Mercer, I don't care about your personal life, but the court will. If Miss Vale is going to remain in your home, we need to make sure she's not a liability." Cole's hands curled into fists. "She's not." "Then we'll prove it. I'll need to interview her." "Fine." Rebecca made a note, then looked up at him. "One more thing. Your mother-in-law's lawyer is going to dig into your past. If there's anything you're hiding, anything at all, I need to know now." Cole's stomach dropped. "What kind of things?" "Criminal record, financial trouble, anything that could be used against you." Cole hesitated. He thought about the years before Emma, about the things he'd done, the people he'd worked for. Most of it was buried, hidden under layers of shell companies and cash payments, and people who knew better than to talk. But not all of it. "There's nothing," he lied. Rebecca studied him, and he could tell she didn't believe him, but she didn't push. "All right," she said. "Then let's get to work." That night, Cole sat down with Sienna and explained what Rebecca needed. "She wants to interview you," he said. Sienna's face went tight. "Why?" "Because you live here. Because Diane's going to use you against me. We need to show that you're not a problem." "And what if I am?" Cole frowned. "What do you mean?" Sienna looked away, her hands twisting in her lap. "I mean, what if there are things about me that make this worse?" "Like what?" She didn't answer. "Sienna, I'm not who you think I am," she said quietly. Cole's chest tightened. "Then who are you?" Sienna stood up, walked to the window, stared out at the street. "My family isn't just rich. They're powerful. And when I left, I didn't just run away. I took something from them." "What did you take?" "Information, files, proof of things they didn't want anyone to see." Cole felt the air go out of the room. "What kind of things?" "Illegal things, dangerous things." She turned to look at him, and her eyes were full of fear. "If they find me, they'll do whatever it takes to get it back. And if I'm here, with you, they'll come after you too." Cole stood up, walked over to her. Why didn't you tell me this before? Because I didn't think it mattered. I thought I could disappear. I thought... Her voice cracked. I thought I'd be gone before it became a problem. But you stayed. Yeah. Why? Sienna looked at him, and there were tears in her eyes. Because for the first time in my life, I felt safe. Cole didn't know what to say. He wanted to be angry, wanted to feel betrayed, but all he felt was tired. Who are they? He asked. Does it matter? Yeah, it does. Sienna wiped her face, took a shaky breath. My father runs a private equity firm, but that's just the front. Behind it, he moves money for people who can't move it themselves. Laundering, offshore accounts, shell companies. He's untouchable. And you took proof of that? Yes. Why? Because I wanted out, and I knew the only way he'd let me go was if I had leverage. Cole ran a hand through his hair, trying to process it. So what's the plan? You just hold on to this forever? I don't know. I didn't think that far ahead. And now? Now I'm here, and I don't know what to do. Cole looked at her, really looked at her, and saw the same fear he'd seen that first night at the bus stop, the same desperation. We'll figure it out, he said. How? I don't know yet, but we will. Sienna shook her head. You shouldn't help me. This isn't your fight. It is now. Cole, I said it is now. His voice was firm, final. You stayed when you could have left. You helped me when you didn't have to. So yeah, this is my fight too. Sienna stared at him, and for a moment she looked like she might argue, but then she just nodded. Okay, she said quietly. Okay. Juan. The next morning, Rebecca came back to interview Sienna. They sat in the living room, and Cole stayed in the kitchen, pretending not to listen. But he heard everything. Ms. Vale, Rebecca said, I need to ask you some questions about your relationship with Mr. Mercer and his daughter. All right. How long have you been living here? A few weeks. And what is the nature of your relationship with Mr. Mercer? We're friends. Just friends? Yes? Rebecca made a note. And how would you describe your relationship with Emma? I care about her. A lot. Do you help with her care? Yes. I cook sometimes. I help with homework. I play with her. And Mr. Mercer is comfortable with that? I think so. You'd have to ask him. Rebecca looked toward the kitchen, and Cole pretended to be busy with the coffee pot. Ms. Vale, Rebecca said, her tone shifting. I need to ask you something more personal. Do you have a criminal record? Sienna hesitated. No. Are you currently involved in any legal disputes? No. Is there anyone who might come looking for you? An ex-partner, family member, anyone who might cause problems? Sienna's hands tightened in her lap. No. Rebecca studied her, and Cole could see the lawyer's instincts kicking in, the sense that something wasn't adding up. Ms. Vale, Rebecca said carefully, if there's anything you're not telling me, now is the time. There's nothing. Are you sure? Sienna looked her in the eye. I'm sure. Rebecca held her gaze for a long moment, then nodded. All right. Thank you for your time. After Rebecca left, Cole and Sienna sat on the couch, not saying anything. She didn't believe me, Sienna said finally. I know. What if she finds out the truth? Then we'll deal with it. How? Cole looked at her, and there was something hard in his eyes. The same way I deal with everything else. Sienna frowned. What does that mean? It means I'm done playing defense. Cole, I'm serious. Diane, your family, whoever else wants to come after us, I'm done waiting for them to make the first move. And what are you going to do instead? Cole stood up, walked to the window, looked out at the city. I'm going to remind people why they used to be afraid of me. Sienna stared at him, and for the first time she saw it. The man he used to be. The one he'd buried, the one he was about to let loose. This is a mistake, she said quietly. Maybe, but it's the only move I have left. 2 days later, Marcus called. We need to talk, he said. About what? About Sienna Vale. Or should I say Sienna Hargrove? Cole's blood went cold. What did you find? Enough to know she's more trouble than you told me. Her father is Vincent Hargrove. Ring any bells? No. Then let me enlighten you. Vincent Hargrove is one of the most connected men on the East Coast. Private equity, sure, but also money laundering, racketeering, and half a dozen other things the feds have been trying to prove for years. Cole's grip tightened on the phone. And Sienna? She ran, took files with her, files that could put her father and a lot of other people in prison for a very long time. How do you know this? Just because Hargrove's been putting out feelers, quietly. He's looking for her, and if he finds her, he's not going to be gentle. Cole's mind raced. Can you keep her hidden? For a while, but not forever. Eventually someone's going to talk. Then what do I do? Marcus paused. You have two options. One, you cut her loose, send her away, tell her to disappear, and hope she stays gone. And two? Two, you go to war. Cole closed his eyes, felt the weight of everything pressing down on him. If I go to war, can I win? Maybe, but it's going to cost you. How much? Everything. Cole stood there, the phone pressed to his ear, and thought about Emma, about Sienna, about the life he'd tried to build and the one that was falling apart. I'll call you back, he said. He hung up, walked to the living room, and found Sienna sitting on the couch, staring at nothing. We need to talk, he said. She looked up at him, and he could see the fear in her eyes. You know? Yeah, I know. And? Cole sat down next to her, took her hand. And I need you to tell me the truth. All of it. Because if we're going to get through this, I need to know what we're up against. Sienna's face crumpled, and she started to cry, quiet, broken sobs that shook her whole body. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry. Cole pulled her close, held her while she cried, and stared at the wall. He'd made his choice. Now, he just had to live with it. That night, after Sienna had cried herself out and fallen asleep on the couch, Cole made another call. Marcus, he said, I'm in. You sure? Yeah, I'm sure. What changed your mind? Cole looked at Sienna, at the way she curled up on the couch like she was trying to make herself disappear. Someone has to fight for her, he said, and it's not going to be anyone else. Marcus was quiet for a moment. All right, then let's get to work. What do you need from me? First, I need you to tell me everything she took. Files, names, locations, everything. I'll get it. Second, I need you to start thinking like the old Cole, the one who didn't hesitate, the one who got things done. Cole's jaw tightened. I never stopped being that Cole. I just buried him. Then dig him up, because you're going to need him. Cole hung up, set the phone down, and stared at his hands. They were shaking, not from fear, from anticipation, because for the first time in 3 years, he felt like himself again, and that terrified him more than anything. The files were worse than Cole expected. Sienna had hidden them in a storage locker across town, and when she handed him the key the next morning, her hands were shaking so badly she could barely hold it. You don't have to look at them, she said. Yeah, I do. Cole. I need to know what we're dealing with. She nodded, her face pale. Okay, but don't say I didn't warn you. They drove out in silence, Emma at Mrs. Brennan's for the day, the city rolling past the windows like a film reel. Sienna kept her arms wrapped around herself, staring out at nothing, and Cole didn't push her to talk. He could see the weight of it pressing down on her, the fear, the guilt, the knowledge that what she'd done couldn't be undone. The storage facility was on the edge of town, wedged between a salvage yard and an abandoned factory. Sienna led him to Unit 47, unlocked the door, and pulled it open. Inside was a single cardboard box. Cole lifted it out, set it on the ground, and opened it. Inside were folders, dozens of them, organized by date and name. He pulled one out at random and started reading. 5 minutes later, he understood why Vincent Hargrove wanted his daughter back. The files were a roadmap of corruption. Shell companies funneling money through offshore accounts, payments to politicians, judges, law enforcement, names, dates, amounts, everything documented with the kind of precision that could only come from someone on the inside. How did you get this? Cole asked. I worked for him, Sienna said quietly. Not officially, but I was his assistant. I handled things he didn't want anyone else to see. And he trusted you with this? He didn't have a choice. I'm his daughter. He thought blood meant loyalty. Cole looked at her, saw the bitterness in her eyes. But it didn't. No, it didn't. He closed the folder, looked at the rest of the box. This could take down a lot of people. I know. So why didn't you go to the police? Sienna laughed, but there was no humor in it. Because half the people in those files are the police. Or they own the police. It doesn't matter. Cole stared at the box, his mind racing. This wasn't just leverage. This was a bomb. And if it went off, it would destroy everyone it touched, including them. We need to move this, he said. Where? Somewhere safer. Marcus can arrange it. Sienna hesitated. You trust him? No, but I don't have anyone else. She nodded, and they loaded the box back into the car. The drive back was even quieter than the drive out, and when they got to the apartment, Cole called Marcus immediately. I need a secure location, he said, something off the grid. What for? Documents, a lot of them. Marcus paused. How sensitive are we talking? Career ending, life ending. All right, I'll set it up. Bring them to the usual place tomorrow night. Thanks. Cole? Yeah? Be careful. If Hargrove knows she has these, he's not going to stop looking. I know. Cole hung up, and Sienna was standing in the doorway watching him. What happens now? She asked. Now we wait. And we get ready. For what? Cole looked at her, and there was something in his eyes that hadn't been there before. Something cold and calculating. For whatever comes next. The next day, Rebecca called with an update on the custody case. We have a hearing scheduled, she said. 2 weeks from now. The judge wants to review both sides before making a decision. And what are our chances? Cole asked. Better than they were. I've spoken to your neighbors, Emma's teacher, a few other people. Everyone says the same thing. You're a good father. You're doing your best. But your mother-in-law has resources. She's hired a top-tier firm, and they're going to come at you hard. They'll paint you as unstable, financially struggling, and incapable of providing a safe environment. Cole's jaw tightened. And what do we do about that? We show them they're wrong. We present character witnesses, financial records showing you're managing, evidence that Emma is thriving under your care. What about Sienna? Rebecca hesitated. That's still a problem. If they dig into her background and find anything questionable, it could hurt us. They won't find anything. How can you be sure? Because I'm making sure of it. Rebecca was quiet for a moment. Mr. Mercer, I don't know what you're involved in, and frankly, I don't want to know. But if you're doing anything that could jeopardize this case, you need to stop, now. I'm not jeopardizing anything. I'm protecting my family. Those aren't always the same thing. Cole didn't answer. He just thanked her and hung up. Sienna was sitting on the couch, listening. She's right, you know. About what? About this being dangerous. If your mother-in-law finds out what you're doing, she won't. You don't know that. Cole sat down next to her, his voice firm. I'm not going to let her take Emma. I don't care what I have to do. Sienna looked at him, and there was sadness in her eyes. You're becoming someone you don't want to be. No, I'm becoming someone I already was. And that doesn't scare you? Cole thought about it, about the man he used to be, about the things he'd done, the people he'd hurt, the lines he'd crossed. Yeah, he said quietly. It does. Sienna took his hand, squeezed it. Then don't do it. I don't have a choice. There's always a choice. Cole pulled his hand away, stood up. Not this time. Tak. That night, Cole met Marcus at a warehouse on the outskirts of the city. It was the same place they used to meet years ago, back when Cole was still running operations and Marcus was the one pulling strings behind the scenes. The building was old, half collapsed, with broken windows and graffiti covering the walls. But it was private. And right now, privacy was all that mattered. Marcus was waiting inside, leaning against a table, smoking a cigarette. You're late, he said. Traffic. Marcus smiled. Sure. You bring the files? Cole held up the box. Right here. Good. Set it down. Cole did, and Marcus walked over, opened it, pulled out a folder. He flipped through it, his expression unreadable. Jesus, he muttered. She really went for the throat, didn't she? Can you keep it safe? Yeah, but it's going to cost you. How much? Marcus looked at him. A favor, when I need it. Cole's stomach twisted. He knew what that meant. A A favor from Marcus was never simple. It was a debt that would hang over him for years, waiting to be called in at the worst possible moment. Fine, Cole said. You sure? Because once you agree, there's no backing out. I said fine. Marcus nodded, closed the folder, and picked up the box. All right. I'll handle it. But Cole? Yeah? This is just the beginning. Hargrove's going to come after her. And when he does, it's going to get ugly. Let him come. Marcus studied him, then shook his head. You're different. You've got that look again. What look? The one you used to have, before you walked away. Cole didn't answer. Marcus stubbed out his cigarette, picked up the box. I'll be in touch. He left, and Cole stood there alone in the warehouse, staring at the empty space where the files had been. He'd just sold another piece of himself, and he wasn't sure how much he had left. The next few days passed in a haze of waiting and preparing. Rebecca kept calling with updates, witness depositions, court filings, motions from Diane's legal team. Cole listened, took notes, and tried to focus. But his mind kept drifting back to Sienna, to the files, to the clock ticking down towards something he couldn't see but could feel coming. Emma noticed. She always noticed. Daddy, are you okay? She asked one night at dinner. Yeah, kiddo, I'm fine. You don't look fine. I'm just tired. Emma frowned. Is Grandma still mad at you? Cole's chest tightened. A little bit. Why? Because she thinks you'd be better off with her. Emma's face scrunched up. But I don't want to live with her. I want to stay with you. I know, baby, and you will. Promise? Cole reached across the table, took her small hand in his. I promise. Emma smiled, and it broke his heart a little. That night, after she was asleep, Cole sat on the fire escape with Sienna. You shouldn't make promises you can't keep, Sienna said. I'm going to keep it. How? By doing whatever it takes. Sienna shook her head. You keep saying that. But what if whatever it takes is too much? Cole looked at her, and there was something hard in his eyes. Then I'll deal with the consequences. And what about Emma? What happens to her if you cross a line you can't come back from? Cole didn't answer. He just stared out at the city, at the lights flickering in the distance. I'm not going to lose her, he said finally. That's the only line that matters. The call came 3 days later. Cole was at work when his phone buzzed. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer, but something told him to. Yeah? Mr. Mercer? The voice was smooth, cultured, with an edge that made Cole's skin crawl. Who is this? My name is Vincent Hargrove. I believe you have something that belongs to me. Cole's blood went cold. He stepped outside into the alley behind the warehouse, his heart pounding. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't insult my intelligence. My daughter is living with you, and she took something when she left. I want it back. She's not your property. No, but those files are. Cole's grip tightened on the phone. What do you want? I want you to convince her to return them and to come home. She's not going home. Then we have a problem. Yeah, we do. There was a pause, and when Hargrove spoke again, his voice was colder. I've done my research on you, Mr. Mercer. I know who you used to be. I know what you're capable of, but you're out of your depth here. Maybe, but I'm still standing in your way. Hargrove laughed, a low, humorless sound. For now, but that can change very quickly. Is that a threat? It's a fact. You have 48 hours to convince my daughter to do the right thing. After that, I stopped being polite. The line went dead. Cole stood there staring at the phone, his mind racing. He walked back inside, clocked out, and went straight home. Sienna was on the couch when he got there, and the second she saw his face, she knew. He called you, she said. Yeah. What did he say? He wants the files back, and he wants you to come home. Sienna's face went pale. What did you tell him? I told him no. Cole, I'm not giving you up. I'm not giving those files up. I don't care what he threatens. Sienna stood up, her hands shaking. You don't understand. He's not bluffing. If you don't give him what he wants, he'll destroy you. Then let him try. This isn't a game. I know it's not. Cole's voice rose, and he forced himself to take a breath. I know it's not, but I'm not backing down. Sienna stared at him, tears streaming down her face. Why are you doing this? Because someone has to. But why you? Cole walked over, took her face in his hands. Because I care about you, and because I'm not going to let him win. Sienna closed her eyes, leaned into him, and for a moment they just stood there, holding on to each other like the world was falling apart around them. Because it was. The next morning, Cole called Marcus. Hargrove contacted me, he said. I figured he would. What did he say? He wants the files back. And Sienna. And you said? No. Marcus was quiet for a moment. You know what you just did, right? Yeah. You just declared war on one of the most powerful men on the East Coast. I know. And you're okay with that? Cole looked at Sienna, who was sitting at the table with Emma, helping her with breakfast. She was smiling, laughing at something Emma said, and for a moment she looked happy. Yeah, Cole said. I'm okay with that. All right, then we need to move fast. Hargrove's going to come at you hard, and we need to be ready. What do you need from me? I need you to trust me, and I need you to do exactly what I say when I say it. Cole hesitated. He didn't trust Marcus. Not completely, but he didn't have a choice. Okay, he said. I'm in. Good. I'll be in touch. Marcus hung up, and Cole sat down at the table, tried to act normal. But inside, he was already preparing for war. The attack came 2 days later. Cole was walking Emma to school when he noticed the car. Black sedan, tinted windows, parked across the street. It had been there when they left the apartment, and it was still there now, following them at a distance. Cole's instincts kicked in. He took Emma's hand, changed direction, turned down a side street. The car followed. Daddy, where are we going? Emma asked. Just taking a different route, kiddo. But school's the other way. I know. We're taking the scenic route. Emma didn't argue. She just held his hand tighter, and Cole's heart pounded in his chest. The car sped up, pulled ahead of them, and stopped at the corner. 2 men got out, big professional, wearing suits that didn't quite hide the bulge of weapons underneath. Cole stopped, put himself between Emma and the men. Emma, he said quietly, I need you to run to that store over there and ask them to call the police. Can you do that? Daddy. Now, Emma. She ran, and Cole turned to face the men. Mr. Mercer, one of them said. Mr. Hargrove would like a word. Tell him to call. He tried that. You didn't listen. And I'm still not listening. The man smiled. That's unfortunate. He reached for his jacket, and Cole moved. Years of training, years of instinct, came flooding back. He closed the distance in 2 steps, grabbed the man's wrist, twisted it hard. The man grunted, dropped to one knee, and Cole drove his elbow into the side of his head. The second man lunged, but Cole was faster. He sidestepped, grabbed the man's arm, used his momentum to throw him into the wall. The man's head cracked against the brick, and he slumped to the ground. Cole stood there, breathing hard, his knuckles stinging. The first man was on the ground, groaning. Cole crouched down, grabbed him by the collar. You go back to Hargrove, he said, his voice low and dangerous. And you tell him if he comes near my daughter again, I'll kill him. Understand? The man nodded, blood dripping from his nose. Cole let him go, stood up, and walked to the store where Emma was waiting. She was standing with the clerk, her eyes wide, and when she saw him, she ran over and threw her arms around him. Are you okay, Daddy? Yeah, kiddo, I'm okay. Who were those men? Nobody important. The police showed up 10 minutes later, took statements, and let Cole go. The 2 men were gone by then, and there was no evidence of what had happened beyond a few scuff marks on the pavement. Cole took Emma to school, hugged her tight, and watched her walk inside. Then he called Marcus. We have a problem, he said. I heard. You put 2 of Hargrove's men in the hospital. They came after my daughter. I know. And now Hargrove knows you're not going to back down. Good. Let him know. Marcus sighed. Cole, this is escalating fast. If we're going to do this, we need to do it right. What do you have in mind? Meet me tonight, same place, and bring Sienna. Why? Because it's time to go on offense. That night, Cole and Sienna drove out to the warehouse. Marcus was waiting with two other men Cole didn't recognize. They were standing around a table covered in maps, photos, and documents. "What is this?" Cole asked. "This," Marcus said, "is how we take down Vincent Hargrove." Sienna stared at the table, her face pale. "You can't be serious." "I'm very serious. Hargrove's coming after you, and he's not going to stop, so we need to hit him first." "How?" Marcus pointed to one of the photos, a building downtown, sleek and modern. "This is his headquarters. His entire operation runs out of this place. If we can get inside, we can find enough evidence to bury him." "The files Sienna took weren't enough?" Cole asked. "They're leverage, but they're not proof. We need something current, something the feds can use." Sienna shook her head. "This is insane. You're talking about breaking into one of the most secure buildings in the city." "I'm talking about survival," Marcus said. "Because if we don't do this, Hargrove's going to destroy all of you. Cole, Sienna, Emma, everyone." Cole looked at Sienna, saw the fear in her eyes. Then he looked at Marcus. "What's the plan?" he asked. Marcus smiled. "I thought you'd never ask." "What?" The plan was risky. Stupid, even. But it was the only plan they had. Marcus laid it out in detail. The timing, the entry points, the security systems they'd need to bypass. Cole listened, asked questions, and tried to ignore the voice in his head telling him this was a mistake. "We go in tomorrow night," Marcus said. "When the building's mostly empty. We'll have a 2-hour window." "And if something goes wrong?" Sienna asked. "Then we run. And we don't stop running." Cole looked at her. You don't have to do this." "Yes, I do. He's my father. This is my mess." "It's our mess now." Sienna met his eyes, and there was something in her expression he couldn't quite read. Gratitude, maybe, or fear, or both. "Okay," she said. "Let's do it." Marcus nodded. "Then we're set. Get some rest. Tomorrow's going to be a long day." They left the warehouse, and on the drive home, neither of them spoke. Cole's hands were tight on the wheel, his mind running through the plan over and over, looking for holes, for problems, for anything that could go wrong. There were too many, but he didn't have a choice. When they got back to the apartment, Sienna stopped him at the door. "Cole," she said, "if this goes bad, it won't. But if it does, then we'll deal with it." Sienna looked at him, and her eyes were full of something he couldn't name. "Thank you for everything." Cole didn't know what to say, so he just nodded, and they went inside. Emma was asleep on the couch, Mrs. Brennan sitting in the chair nearby, reading a book. "Everything okay?" she asked. "Yeah," Cole lied. "Everything's fine." Mrs. Brennan didn't look convinced, but she didn't push. She just gathered her things and left. Cole picked up Emma, carried her to her room, tucked her in. She stirred, mumbled something in her sleep, and he kissed her forehead. "I love you, kiddo," he whispered. Then he walked back to the living room, sat down on the couch, and stared at the wall. Tomorrow, everything would change, and he had no idea if they'd survive it. The building looked different at night. Cole stood across the street, hands in his pockets, watching the lights flicker in the windows of Hargrove's headquarters. It was sleek, modern, all glass and steel, the kind of place that screamed money and power. The kind of place that made people like him feel small, but Cole didn't feel small anymore. Sienna stood next to him, her face hidden in the shadow of her hood. She hadn't said much since they'd left the apartment, just stared straight ahead, her jaw tight, her hands curled into fists. "You ready?" Cole asked. "No." "Me neither." She almost smiled at that. Almost. Marcus pulled up in a black van, the side door sliding open. "Get in." They climbed inside, and Marcus handed them each a small earpiece and a phone. "Communications," he said. "Stay on the line. If anything goes wrong, you run. Don't be a hero." Cole didn't answer. He just put the earpiece in and checked the phone. Marcus looked at Sienna. "You remember the layout?" "Yeah." "And you know where the server room is?" "Top floor, east wing." "Good. You'll have 15 minutes once the power's cut. Any longer and security will notice." Sienna nodded, but her hands were shaking. Cole reached over, took one of them. "We're going to be fine." "You don't know that." "No. But I'm going to make sure of it." She looked at him, and for a moment something passed between them, something that didn't need words. Marcus checked his watch. All right, we move in 5. Protect. The entry was easier than Cole expected. Marcus had arranged for a delivery truck to arrive at the loading dock, and in the chaos of boxes being unloaded, Cole and Sienna slipped inside. The uniform Marcus had given Cole was too tight across the shoulders, but it worked. No one looked twice. They made their way to the stairwell, climbed to the 3rd floor, and waited. Power cuts in 30 seconds, Marcus said through the earpiece. Cole counted down in his head. When the lights flickered and died, plunging the building into darkness, he moved. They reached the top floor without incident. The emergency lights cast everything in a dim red glow, and the hallway was empty except for the hum of the backup generators. Sienna led the way to the server room, her steps quick and silent. She stopped at the door, pulled out a keycard Marcus had cloned, and swiped it. The light turned green. They stepped inside and Cole closed the door behind them. The room was cold, filled with rows of servers blinking with tiny lights. Sienna walked to the main terminal, sat down, and started typing. How long? Cole asked. 10 minutes? Maybe less. Cole stood by the door, listening. His heart was pounding, but his hands were steady. This was what he used to do, what he was good at. He'd forgotten how it felt. The focus, the clarity, the sense that everything else disappeared except the moment. Cole, Sienna said, I'm in. He walked over, looked at the screen. Files were downloading, hundreds of them. Transaction records, emails, ledgers, everything they needed. How much longer? 5 minutes. Cole nodded, turned back to the door, and then he heard footsteps. Someone's coming, he said quietly. Sienna's hands froze on the keyboard. How many? I don't know, at least 2. Can we hide? Cole looked around the room. There was nowhere to go, no closets, no side doors, just them and the servers. No, he said. We stand our ground. The footsteps grew louder, and then the door opened. 2 security guards stepped inside, flashlights cutting through the darkness. They saw Cole and Sienna and stopped. Hey, one of them said. What are you doing in here? Cole stepped forward, hands up. We got turned around. Power went out, and we couldn't find the exit. The guard frowned. This is a restricted area. I know. We're sorry. We'll leave. The guard's hand moved to his radio, and Cole knew they were out of time. He moved fast, closed the distance, grabbed the guard's wrist before he could call it in, twisted it hard. The radio clattered to the floor, and the guard swung at him. Cole ducked, drove his shoulder into the man's chest, slammed him into the wall. The second guard lunged, but Sienna was already there. She grabbed a fire extinguisher off the wall, swung it hard, and caught him in the side of the head. He dropped like a stone. Cole pinned the first guard, his forearm across the man's throat. How many more are coming? The guard didn't answer. Cole pressed harder. How many? 2, the guard gasped. On their way now! Cole let him go, and the man slumped to the floor, coughing. We need to go, Sienna said. Is the download done? She checked the screen. Almost. 30 seconds. Then we wait. Sienna stared at him. Cole, we wait. She turned back to the screen, her fingers flying over the keyboard. Cole dragged the 2 guards to the corner, zip-tied their hands with cables from one of the servers, and stood by the door. The 30 seconds felt like an hour. Done, Sienna said finally. She pulled the drive from the terminal, shoved it in her pocket. Let's go. They stepped into the hallway just as the other 2 guards rounded the corner. Stop! One of them shouted. Cole didn't stop. He grabbed Sienna's hand and ran. They hit the stairwell, took the steps 2 at a time, their footsteps echoing in the concrete shaft. Behind them, the guards were shouting, calling for backup. Marcus, Cole said into the earpiece, we're blown. We need an exit. Loading dock, 2 minutes. They reached the ground floor, burst through the door, and sprinted down the hallway. Alarms were blaring now, and Cole could hear more footsteps behind them, closing in. The loading dock was ahead. Cole could see the door, see the light spilling in from the street, and then someone stepped in front of them. Vincent Hargrove. He was older than Cole expected, with silver hair and sharp eyes that looked like they could cut glass. He was flanked by 2 men in suits, both armed. Sienna, Hargrove said, his voice calm. It's time to come home. Sienna stopped, her breath coming in short gasps. No. This has gone on long enough. You've made your point. Now give me the drive and come with me. I'm not giving you anything. Hargrove's expression didn't change. Then I'll take it. The two men moved forward, and Cole stepped in front of Sienna. You're going to have to go through me first, he said. Hargrove looked at him, and there was something cold in his eyes. I know who you are, Mr. Mercer. I know what you used to be, but you're not that man anymore. You're just a tired father playing hero. Maybe, but I'm still standing in your way. Hargrove sighed, like this was all very tedious. Kill him. The two men raised their guns, and Cole's mind went blank. He moved on instinct. Grabbed Sienna, pulled her down as the first shot rang out. The bullet hit the wall behind them, and Cole lunged forward, drove his fist into the nearest man's gut. The man doubled over, and Cole grabbed his wrist, twisted the gun free, and fired. The shot was loud, deafening in the enclosed space. The second man dropped, clutching his shoulder, and Cole turned the gun on Hargrove. Tell them to back off, he said. Hargrove didn't move. You won't shoot me. You sure about that? Yes. Because if you kill me, you'll never stop running. My people will hunt you down. They'll find your daughter, and they'll make sure you watch her suffer before they kill you too. Cole's hand tightened on the gun. Every muscle in his body screamed to pull the trigger, to end this. But he couldn't, because Hargrove was right. Then we're at an impasse, Cole said. No, Hargrove said, we're not. He pulled a phone from his pocket, held it up. On the screen was a photo of Emma, sitting at her desk at school. Cole's blood went cold. Let us go, he said, his voice shaking, or I upload everything, every file, every transaction, every name. I'll send it to every news outlet, every federal agency, every person who wants to see you burn. Hargrove smiled. You're bluffing. Try me. For a long moment they stared at each other, and then Hargrove lowered the phone. Fine, he said. Go. But this isn't over. Yeah, Cole said. It is. He grabbed Sienna's hand, and they ran. Boom. Marcus was waiting in the van, engine running. Cole and Sienna jumped inside, and Marcus hit the gas before the door even closed. Did you get it? Marcus asked. Sienna held up the drive. Yeah, we got it. Good, because half the city's about to be looking for you. Cole leaned back against the seat, his heart pounding. His hands were shaking, and he couldn't make them stop. You okay? Sienna asked. No. Me neither. Marcus glanced at them in the rear-view mirror. What happened in there? Hargrove showed up, Cole said. He threatened Emma. Marcus swore under his breath. Then we need to move fast. We get this to the feds, get Sienna into witness protection, and disappear. What about Emma? Cole asked. She goes with you. New names, new city. It's the only way. Cole closed his eyes, felt the weight of it pressing down on him. He'd wanted to protect Emma, to give her a normal life. And now he was dragging her into this. There's another option, Sienna said quietly. Both men turned to look at her. I go back, she said. I turn myself in. I tell him I'll destroy the files if he leaves you alone. No, Cole said immediately. Cole, I said no. He'll never stop coming after you, not unless I give him a reason to. And what, you think he'll just let you walk away? He'll kill you the second you hand over that drive. Maybe, but at least Emma will be safe. Cole stared at her, and something broke inside him. I didn't do all this just to lose you. Sienna's eyes filled with tears. And I didn't come into your life just to destroy it. You didn't destroy it. You saved it. She reached over, took his hand. Then let me finish what I started. No. Marcus pulled the van over, turned to face them. Both of you, listen to me. We don't have time for this. Hargrove's not going to stop. The only way to end this is to take him down completely. And we have the evidence to do it. The feds won't move fast enough, Cole said. Then we don't go to the feds. We go public. We leak everything, every file, every name. We burn his entire operation to the ground. Sienna shook her head. That'll start a war. Good. Let it. Because the only way you two survive this is if Hargrove's too busy defending himself to come after you. Cole looked at Sienna, saw the fear in her eyes, but he also saw something else. Hope. All right, he said. Let's do it. Jet. They spent the next 12 hours uploading files. Marcus had contacts, journalists, bloggers, activists, people who'd been waiting for something like this. And when the files hit, they hit hard. By morning, every major news outlet was running the story. Vincent Hargrove's empire was crumbling in real time. Arrests were being made, accounts were being frozen, and Hargrove himself was nowhere to be found. Cole sat in Marcus's office, watching it unfold on the screens, and felt something he hadn't felt in years. Relief. Sienna walked in, carrying 2 cups of coffee. She handed one to Cole, sat down next to him. "It's over," she said. "Yeah, it is." "What happens now?" Cole took a sip of coffee, stared at the screen. "Now we figure out what normal looks like." Sienna smiled. "I don't think I've ever been normal." "Me neither." They sat in silence for a while, and then Cole's phone rang. It was Rebecca. "Mr. Mercer," she said, "I have good news. The custody case has been dismissed." Cole's heart stopped. "What?" "Your mother-in-law withdrew her petition this morning. She's dropping the case." "Why?" "I don't know, but it's over. Emma stays with you." Cole closed his eyes, felt the weight lift off his chest. "Thank you." "You're welcome. And Mr. Mercer?" "Yeah?" "Whatever you did, I don't want to know, but I'm glad it worked." She hung up, and Cole set the phone down. Sienna was watching him. "What happened?" "Diane dropped the case. Emma's staying with me." Sienna's face broke into a smile. Genuine, bright, the kind Cole hadn't seen from her before. "That's amazing." "Yeah, it is." "What?" That afternoon, Cole picked Emma up from school. She ran to him like she always did, her backpack bouncing, her face lit up with excitement. "Daddy, guess what?" "What, kiddo?" "We made volcanoes in science today and mine exploded everywhere, and it was so cool." Cole laughed, scooped her up, held her close. "That sounds awesome." "It was. Can we make one at home?" "Maybe. We'll see." Emma hugged him tight, and Cole felt something settle in his chest, something that had been broken for a long time. They walked home together, hand in hand, and when they got to the apartment, Sienna was waiting. She'd made dinner, spaghetti, from a box, slightly overcooked, but it was the best thing Cole had ever tasted. They ate together, the 3 of them, and for the first time in years, the apartment didn't feel empty. A week later, Diane showed up at the door. Cole opened it, and they stood there, looking at each other. She looked older, tired, like the fight had gone out of her. "I'm not here to cause trouble," she said. "Then why are you here?" "To apologize." Cole didn't say anything. He just waited. Diane took a breath. "I was wrong. About you. About everything. I thought Emma would be better off with me because I could give her things you couldn't. Money, stability. But I was wrong. She doesn't need things. She needs you." Cole's throat tightened. "Yeah, she does. I know I hurt you, and I know I can't take that back, but I want to be part of her life. If you'll let me." Cole thought about it, about all the things Diane had said, all the ways she'd tried to tear him down. Part of him wanted to tell her no, to close the door and never let her back in. But Emma loved her, and Emma deserved to have her grandmother in her life. "Okay," he said, "but on my terms." "Of course. And if you ever try to take her from me again, I won't. I promise." Cole nodded. "Then we'll figure it out." Diane's eyes filled with tears. "Thank you." She left, and Cole closed the door, leaned against it. Sienna walked over, put a hand on his shoulder. "You did the right thing." "Did I?" "Yeah, you did." 3 months later, Cole and Sienna were sitting on the fire escape watching the city lights. Emma was asleep inside, her stuffed rabbit tucked under her arm. The apartment was quiet, peaceful, and for the first time in a long time, Cole felt like he could breathe. "You ever think about what comes next?" Sienna asked. "All the time." "And?" "I don't know. I'm still figuring it out." Sienna smiled. "Me too." Cole looked at her, at the way the light caught her face, at the strength in her eyes. She wasn't running anymore, and neither was he. "I'm glad you stayed," he said. "Me too." They sat there in the quiet, and Cole thought about everything that had happened, about the man he used to be and the man he'd become, about the choices he'd made and the price he'd paid. He thought about the people who'd underestimated him, who'd thought he was weak, broken, easy to push around. They'd been wrong, not because he was strong, but because he'd had something worth fighting for. And that made all the difference. A year later, Cole stood in front of a small office building on the edge of town. The sign above the door read Mercer Security Consulting. It wasn't much, just a one-room operation with a desk, a computer, and a phone. But it was his. Built from the ground up, clean and legal. No Marcus, no favors, no debts. Sienna walked up beside him carrying 2 cups of coffee. "You ready?" she asked. "Yeah, I think I am." They walked inside together, and Cole sat down at his desk. The phone rang almost immediately, and he picked it up. "Mercer Security. How can I help you?" On the other end, a voice explained a problem, a situation, something that needed solving. And Cole listened, took notes, and started planning. Because this was what he did. Not for money, not for power, but because people needed help. And he knew how to give it. Emma came by after school, her backpack slung over one shoulder. "Hey, Daddy, can I do my homework here?" "Of course, kiddo." She sat down at the small table in the corner, pulled out her books, and started working. Sienna helped her with math, and Cole handled another call. It was small, simple, ordinary, and it was perfect. Shem. That night, Cole tucked Emma into bed, kissed her forehead, and turned off the light. He walked back to the living room where Sienna was curled up on the couch, reading. "You okay?" she asked. "Yeah, I'm good." "You sure?" Cole sat down next to her, put his arm around her shoulders. "Yeah, I'm sure." They sat there together, the apartment quiet around them, and Cole realized something. He'd spent years trying to bury the man he used to be, trying to be someone different, someone better. But the truth was, he didn't need to be different. He just needed to choose what to fight for. And he'd chosen. He'd chosen Emma. He'd chosen Sienna. He'd chosen a life built on something real, something worth protecting. The people who'd tried to break him, Diane, Hargrove, all of them, they thought his grief made him weak. They were wrong. His grief had made him careful, strategic, dangerous in ways they'd never seen coming. And when they'd pushed him too far, when they'd threatened the people he loved, he'd shown them exactly what he was capable of. Not because he wanted to, but because he had to. And that was the thing about people like Cole, people who'd been underestimated their whole lives. They didn't need to prove anything to anyone. They just needed a reason. And once they had it, nothing could stop them. Sometimes the world looks at a man and sees only what's on the surface. The exhaustion, the struggle, the quiet desperation of someone just trying to survive. And they think that's all there is. But underneath, in the places people don't bother to look, there's something else, something built from pain and loss and the refusal to give up. There's strength that doesn't need to announce itself, power that doesn't need to be displayed, and a love so fierce, so unbreakable, that it becomes the foundation for everything else. Cole Mercer wasn't a hero. He wasn't perfect. He made mistakes, crossed lines, and did things he wasn't proud of. But he fought for what mattered. And when the people he loved needed him, he didn't hesitate. Because that's what love is. Not the easy moments, not the happy endings that come without a fight. It's the choice to stand up when you're tired, to keep going when you want to quit, to protect the people who need you, even when it costs you everything. And in the end, that's the only thing that matters. Not the power you had, not the empire you built, not the reputation you earned, just the people you fought for, and the life you built together. Cole looked at Sienna, at Emma sleeping in the next room, at the small, imperfect life they'd created, and he knew he'd made the right choice. Not because it was easy, but because it was worth it, and that was enough.